The causes of the 9-Year War that began in 1754 were greed and fear. The greed was a hope to capture the most land in the New World and control the treasures of the territory. The fear was that one country would gain more power than the other.
France and Britain were well matched. The British Navy was the most powerful in the world, but France had the stronger army. Great Britain had the strong alliance with the 6 tribes of the Iroquois Confederacy, but the French were trading partners with many of the western tribes. The French had more experienced military leadership, and unlike the British colonists, the French settlers did not argue amongst themselves.
The Treaty of 1763 did not end the war, but at the same time set Georgia's western boundary at the Mississippi River.
The reason the Native Americans were sided with the French because they were trading partners and were treated better than by the British. The reason the French and Indian War led to the American Revolution was mainly the Proclamation of 1763 banned colonists from settling west of the Appalachian Mountains. At the same time, the proclamation moved Georgia's boundary to the St. Mary River. The Cherokee and Creek tribes gave up all their lands between the Savannah River and north of Augusta. The tribes also gave up land south of the Altamaha River. The Proclamation of 1763 was created in response to Ohio gained as land. The Appalachian Mountains were now a boundary for the colonists. The St. Mary River became the new boundary for the south of Georgia. The new boundaries helped Georgia by settlers migrating to the colony. Good farmland and waterways helped too. The Stamp Act impacted Georgia by closing the Georgia Gazette until it was repealed. The group of Georgians who came out to oppose the Stamp Act was called the Liberty Boys, a part of the larger group called the Sons of Liberty. The average Georgian was not affected by the Stamp Act. In all, Georgia would stay loyal to Britain. One of the causes of the Revolutionary War was the Intolerable Acts. There are 4 parts to the Intolerable Acts. One of the 4 parts was the closing of the ports of Boston. They wouldn't allow the colonists to have town meetings. Another part of the Intolerable Acts was the fact that if a colonist commits a crime in the colonies, they would be tried in Great Britain. The final part and the most devastating part of the Intolerable Acts was the fact that colonists had to shelter the soldiers at their own expense. Georgia sided with the British because they were the youngest colony and the poorest, so they had to depend on Great Britain. The Declaration of Independence was mainly written by Thomas Jefferson. The 2 most important dates associated with the Declaration of Independence is January 1776 and July 4th, 1776. There were 3 parts to the Declaration of Independence: the preamble, the body, and the conclusion. The body, the conclusion, was first the grievances and then the separation from Great Britain. The preamble was an introduction that helped the colonists feel about democracy. The grievances were 27 complaints against King George III, and the conclusion declared the colonists finally independent from Britain as a nation. The loyalists of the colonies were those who were loyal to King George III. Patriots, on the other hand, were those citizens who were ready to cut ties with Great Britain. Elijah Clark was the colonel of a rebel militia group. The victory in the Battle of Kettle Creek was important to Georgia because the militia got badly needed weapons and horses from the British. The spirits of Georgia was lifted by the victory. Austin Dabney was one of the men who followed Colonel Elijah Clark at Kettle Creek. He was also a Revolutionary War hero. Austin Dabney was a good soldier at Kettle Creek, but he was wounded in action. Since Austin Dabney was a veteran of the Battle of Kettle Creek, he got land in Madison County for participating in the Revolutionary War. The land he got was very valuable. Nancy Hart was a Georgia legend and hero who was the only woman to have a county named after her. Nancy Hart got British soldiers drunk and then took their weapons away. After that, she killed 1 or 2 of them and then captured the rest and had them hanged. Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, and George Walton signed the Declaration of Independence. Button Gwinnett's signature is now worth $250,000 in today's money. George Walton, at age 26, was the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence from Georgia. The Siege of Savannah was when the Allied forces lost more than 1,000 of their forces in 45 minutes. There were 22 French ships and 4,000 soldiers under the command of Charles Henry Comte d'Estaing and 15,000 Americans under Benjamin Lincoln. Haitians were also involved in the battle. The Polish Count Kazimierz Pulaski fought in the battle too and was wounded and died. The main weakness of the Georgia Constitution of 1777 was the Constitution gave too much power to the legislative branch. The governor of Georgia was to be selected by the legislative branch rather than being voted in by the people. The first governor under the Constitution of 1777 was John Truden, a Salzburger. The Articles of Confederation was the first written plan of the government of the United States of America. No chief executive or governor was placed under the Articles. The Articles won today's federal government with little power because to make sure the government was different from Great Britain. The purpose of the Philadelphia Convention of 1787 was to make the national government stronger. The Articles of Confederation was the first written plan of the government of the United States of America. No chief executive or governor was placed under the Articles. The Articles won today's federal government with little power because to make sure the government was different from Great Britain. The purpose of the Philadelphia Convention of 1787 was to make the national government stronger. The purpose of the Constitutional Convention in 1787 was to revise the Articles of Confederation. Two delegates from Georgia who signed the U.S. Constitution was William Few and Abraham Baldwin. Three states signed the Constitution before Georgia. Georgia responded to the Constitution by approving it quickly by holding a special convention.